Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to introduce you to some of the hand tools I use when I'm reducing a piece of wood like this down into a hiking stick. It's about 2 inches in diameter there, which is possibly more than what 99% of people will require for a hiking stick. I've left it at this because I'm going to carve a wood spirit on the top and halfway down the shaft. So to keep all the proportions pretty much central, I'm going to have to reduce this wood down into a taper. So how I go about doing that is with hand tools predominantly. I'm not going to be doing power tools, rotary tools, or sanding discs or heavy grade sanding items which you can remove wood. It's all going to consist of basically discussing the hand tools I would be using to do this. They fall into several categories. Just looking over there, I've got planes, I've got rasps, files, chisels, saws, and other bladed items like knives, which I can use to trim around areas or just draw back as I would a draw knife. So yeah, without any further ado, I'll bring you over and we'll have a look at these tools. Right, this is my block plane, and I've obviously included a spoke shave amongst this. These are two smaller planes, ideal for doing technical work or doing tapers for the tips, but this will remove a lot of wood and leaving you with the ability to keep a pretty much straight shaft, and it will eliminate some of the dips and crevices, because obviously as you run down the length of the hiking stick, any gullies are going to be left. It'll take wood around it and reduce it so it all comes back flush. Fantastic tool that is. Spoke shave, well, that's good for doing technical work and doing tapers for the tips. All these have their place, and this is predominantly the planes that I use in my workshop. Now this plane is indispensable. I can remove a lot of wood fast and extremely accurately, and it will also give a good solid flat base to work from when I go on to sanding the stick. It does have its drawbacks, and that is it's not very good for doing technical work. When I'm doing technical work, I'll always use the smaller planes, but as you can see here, I'm removing this knuckle and it takes it down fast. I don't have it on a higher setting where I actually take too much wood off, because you can actually tear the wood at that point. You want it just enough so it's taking shavings, not ripping the wood. And as you can see there, it's got a nice flat beginning of a surface there on that knuckle. It's not too much work to use it either. It is quite ergonomic and it does feel nice in the hand. Now here's a small little plane, and this one is absolutely fantastic for working in and around difficult situations. Like these knuckles, I can follow the area that's already been worked and just stick to localized areas. I don't have to go into a trough, I can just stick to the high points, and it takes off just enough, and it's quite manageable, particularly when you're dealing with normal hiking stick sizes. Obviously this hiking stick is bigger than what most people would be working. This next plane has an absolutely brilliant ability to do really technical stuff. Because the blade width isn't very wide, I can really get in and around the gullies, around the backs of knuckles, and help bring it back down. As you can see, it sends nice curls up as well. It's a fantastic little plane, and I was quite lucky to pick this one up. I think I actually did get it for surfboard making originally. Now a spoke shave has been an absolute godsend, and I was without one for years, but it is so technical. You can work in and around every little nook, cranny, crevice, and it fits in your hand and you can maneuver it around the shaft of the stick. Fantastic tool to reduce wood. I'm on a actual draw knife now. These are brilliant for removing a lot of wood if you really need to get a lot of wood removed. You can use it in a technical manner, but you really don't find that you have the ability to get too technical. It's just too big, too unwieldy. But like I said, if you want to remove a lot of wood fast, you can do it with this tool. Moving on to actually rasps. I've got a couple rasps, a couple bought ones, and there's something I've made up out of a broken blade. And this works surprisingly well because there's a lot of flex within that blade. And as you'll see, it'll fit along that shaft and hit the bits that you want to take off, but not go into the bits you don't. It's just a complete fluke how it works, but I find it really does do the job. And this is my go-to tool if I want to remove a lot of wood fast. And as you can see, it's doing a fantastic job there. The only thing is it will clog up naturally because you don't have an area for the waste wood to go. I've got a smaller one, which is really good if you really want to start taking wood down in a localized area. Rasps really are good for shaping wood. They're what you would go to after you've planed your wood down to where you want to get it. The rasp is where you can start now actually getting a shape that you want. Now this is a bigger one, and I find this a little bit unwieldy on a lot of the hiking sticks. And I've actually got the blade working in the opposite way that you should, because I can pull back on the handle. And you can see when I use it, I'm pulling back instead of pushing forward. But even this one, you can see it's removing a lot of wood there. And it's very easy to shape that hiking stick how you want it. Now I consider all types of rasps as the first stage of shaping the wood. They're really aggressive and you can get a bulk of your shaping and get the actual style of stick you want from them. Right, once you've done your real hard rough shaping, I'll always move on to files. And as you can see, I've got several with different aggressive blades on those files. This one's a half mooned one, which means it's got a rounded back and a flat front. But nevertheless, both sides are aggressive. So I can continue shaping and removing wood to get that initial shape. You can get them in triangle, box shapes. You know, there's a multitude of different styles for files. I'm now moving on to a lighter grade on that blade, and that's just to take the processing marks out so that I don't have to work so hard when I'm sanding. After we've done this, we can then move on to other types of tools and those which you might need to move on to getting knots and any other things in that wood, defects that you want to start working. I'll move on to kind of like knives at this point. They do have their places, and that's my homemade debarker, but I do use that on wood itself. And I can do very light shaving, which will help take processing marks out. As you can see, it's removing very small slivers of wood, almost like a cabinet scraper, but possibly just that little bit more aggressive. As you can see, it takes a nice little bit of wood off. I can use a knife as well to draw back to clean up some bits of the wood. And this is just basically an ordinary grandfather's pocket knife. In fact, my grandfather would have just used a pocket knife to craft all of his hiking sticks. From cutting it, from debarking it, shaping it, and giving it a very quick over sand. It would have all been done with the actual blade itself. This is my homemade horseshoe. I do use them in the manufacture of hiking sticks as well. not just for my bushcrafting. They are actually a working knife for me as well. And as you can see, what I'm doing, I'm just working around that knot and trying to sort of like get it to a point when I sand, I don't have to be there endlessly sanding. I'm moving on to chisels now, and they do have a place, and I use various chisels in and around knots or areas that are damaged, like scar tissue on the wood, or I'm trying to create an effect in itself like a handle, or trying to take out some wood in a very localized area. You've got good control. You can hold that chisel at the front and the back. You have very good control, better than you can get with a knife or any other implement to do this technical work. I don't have a vast array of chisels, but what I have allows me to work hiking sticks in my manner and in my particular style. This is a very, very hard knot in this piece of wood, so I'm basically having to hold it quite firm and gently wriggle the blade so it bites into the wood and I can start removing it. Now you could actually use mechanical sanding, rotary tools, burrs, discs to actually take away some wood, but sometimes you want to retain features, and when you're mechanically sanding or using mechanical tools, it can be just too heavy and remove the feature that you're trying to keep, or you're not able to actually enhance that feature by working around it. The sanding will be just too aggressive, no matter how gentle you are. And indeed, I've actually had features before I've lost while mechanical sanding. Right, moving on to saws. I've got a junior hacksaw, a standard wood saw and a coping saw. They all have their place, and the standard wood saw needs no explanation really. That's for basically cutting off bits of wood and helping. The more wood you can remove before you start using any of the other tools, the less work you've got. And obviously this is basically your foundation tool to get you to the point where you start working the actual wooden stick or stave. As you can see, I'm now taking a little chunk off the bottom. That little chunk is wood I'm not having to sand or work in any other way. The coping saw is brilliant because you can do more detailed technical cutting, and you can swivel the blade and the handle around to get better access to bits of wood that you want to cut. It is one of my go-tos if I'm cutting in and around knots or creating pegs for toppers. Now you're probably thinking, why a junior hacksaw? Because that's for metal. Well, I use copper tips, and quite often there'll be, once I've put the tip on, I will have to cut off a little bit of wood. Now if I'm using any of those other woodworking saws or files or anything else to take that wood down, it will damage the blades. Obviously a junior hacksaw is for cutting metal. It doesn't cut wood very good, but I can still remove wood and not damage the blade. That's why I'm using a junior hacksaw in some applications on my hiking sticks. So as you can see, I've just got some basic hand tools which I'm able to craft my hiking sticks, and I've been doing that for years. I do have mechanical sanding aids which can remove a lot of wood as well, and on top of that, cutting equipment that I can trim off a lot faster, or rotary tools. But ultimately those are the tools I produce most of my hiking sticks through my workshop, which then goes on to the customers. My workshop isn't a all-inclusive woodworking paradise with every tool available that a joiner or a woodworking shop would want. I'm at the bottom end and I'm predominantly using cheap hand tools. It does go to show that if you are starting out with stick making or crafting, you don't need to go all out and buy all the expensive equipment. Just start with some basic hand tools, get yourself started, get the feel for working with wood, and then move on if you so wish. The only reason I haven't is because, well, A, I can't afford it, B, I don't need it, and C, I quite enjoy working with what I've got. There's a sense of achievement producing an item a customer will buy from just basically your hands and a few metal tools that don't require a lot of maintenance, a lot of cost, and on top of that, they're indispensable, as in I can just pick them off the shelf, use them, and they're ready to go. I don't have to think about how they're stored, how they're maintained, or any running costs afterwards. They are just there. Pull them off the shelf and go for it. And there is a sense of connection using hand tools like that. When you're working the wood, you can feel the grain, the knots. You can feel the wood as you actually start to shape it. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to, no matter what your budget, start off really basic and with minimal equipment, and if so, work on up. But for me, I'm quite happy staying as I am. And while this isn't a all-inclusive, encompassing video on each individual tool and where and how I use it, it just gives you an insight on possibly the application I may apply that to a particular piece of wood I'm working at any given time, and the reason I have it. So I'll be blatantly honest with you, it's a pretty simple video, and a lot of people will consider this pretty much Billy Basics. But if you're getting into crafting and stick making and woodworking on a really basic level, I'm hoping there was something there you could just see where and how I'm using it through me explaining. Very generally, this is a topic that I could probably do more in-depth videos on each particular tool and how I use it, and that may come in the future. This is just an insight video. If you're more experienced or a professional crafter, woodworker, there's probably tools that I don't have that which you could possibly recommend to me. And on top of that, there's probably applications or methods of using those tools a lot better than how I probably do it. But in any case, we're all here working wood. We're all getting some enjoyment out of it. And this is just me, how I do it for my brand of Folklore hiking sticks. My brand is pretty much got that hillbilly from the woods, from the moors kind of feel to them. And I kind of encourage that and like that. And the way I craft with simple hand tools fits my brand perfectly also. So all that's left to be said is take care, stay safe, and I hope to catch you guys on the trail.